Breaking the Cycle to Step Forward. Authentic conversations from lived experience and a professional perspective in overcoming abuse with Chris Tuck and Beverley Ann.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Breaking the Cycle to Step Forward podcast with myself, Chris Tuck, and my lovely, wonderful co-host,
Beverley Ann. Hello everyone.
So what episode is this, Bev? It's number...
This is 53.
Wow, we're getting through them, aren't we?
Yes, and it's been a while since we've actually done an episode on our own. So that's why it says 53, but we do have lots more episodes, but we have guests, etc. We have some fabulous guests, and we have our Q&A monthly session as well. So for anyone looking, thinking, why is it only 53? That is why. But You're introducing our subject today.
I am, and we're talking about gut instinct. What does it mean? What does it look like? Have I got it? I don't have it. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of having this thing called gut instinct? So let's go back to basics, and let me ask you, what does that phrase just bring up for you when I say gut instinct?
So the gut instinct is related to the science behind it. So if we think of the brain, it comes in three different parts. But the first part that develops in our brain is what we call the reptilian part of the brain. So that's the part. And if you take it back to historical times when there were dinosaurs and reptiles around, that helps me actually remember that.
Yeah.
We would sense danger before we actually sometimes saw it, felt it, heard it, or tasted it, for instance. And that's our vagus nerve that sits down deep, 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 feels like at the base of our stomach. So it's our vagus nerve that senses a danger. And the evidence it looks for that is it's something that's familiar to them, something's changed. But it's so minute sometimes, it's subconscious. It's not a conscious. It's a subconscious sense of fear. And that sends the alarm up to the amygdala in our brain. And then we start from there, as we've always spoken about, fight or flight. So can you imagine that... So when there's a tsunami, this is a little fact that people aren't aware of. What happens, say that we get used to seagulls and the sounds of birds, don't we? That we actually become deaf to it sometimes because it's always there. But when there's a tsunami about to happen, all wildlife will go quiet because they're trying to go inland. Mm-hmm. So consciously, we might not realise that it's gone so quiet, but subconsciously our body will pick up something's different.
Yeah, something's about to change. So Beverley, it was really funny for me, as in like making me smile now, when I said to you, what does the phrase gut instinct mean to you? I was expecting you to come out with a funny feeling in my tummy, a sense of something is off, something is not right. And you came and gave us a scientific explanation. So thank you for that. But let's go back to my first question. What does that word gut instinct mean to you? Forget about the science. What feelings does it bring about for you?
Yeah, well, it is. Something doesn't feel right. And this is where, when we say it doesn't feel right, and we often diminish that. Our stomach feels a bit funny often, or we may react instinctively, like I know, like if something happens for me, sometimes it may be, I instantly feel my body like tense up and I'm like, no, I don't agree with that. Not that I want an argument, but it's like, this doesn't feel right. Mm-hmm. So even if you're in a group of people and say 6 people are like, yes, this is funny and all the rest of it. But for me, it may be like, no, actually, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
I don't think it's funny. Now, we often, as human beings, don't trust that judgment. what we tend to do is think, oh, well, there's 6 of them and there's 1 of me. They must be right. I'm on my own. Or we
Yeah.
go and speak to somebody else and go, but this just happened. Do you think I'm being oversensitive?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to say that when you're feeling that, you know what? Trust that feeling.
And I think, Beverley, I've just explained to you before we came on air that I've worked with some women who have said to me, but I don't have that gut instinct. Is that why I'm always getting into relationships that are not beneficial to me, i.e., they're dysfunctional or they're harmful? I don't have that. They're not okay. They're not treating me right. What would you say about that situation?
Well, that's very much about what we call their familial, so of the family. And even though they're not family relationships, it's what's been learnt as learnt behaviour and what feels safe when you're growing up. So, for instance, you know, when you've grown up in a dysfunctional family and maybe the only way you got attention was by being ill, that will carry on into your other relationships. That if I'm ill, I'll get the attention, but if I'm well, I won't. Or the other way, people pleasing. You know, if I say, I don't, think of a child growing up in a normal, loving,
Yeah.
I say normal, but we don't know what normal is, but in a loving environment, and the child says, I don't like that, I don't want that, then it's often like, okay, if you don't like that, what do you like? But
Yeah.
can you imagine growing up saying, I don't like that, and you being told off, or it causing a huge reaction,
Yeah.
a
You get
physical
penalized
reaction?
for it. Yeah.
Absolutely. What it teaches you is that you can't actually have your own opinion. So you learn to people please, to try and prevent and keep safe. And that,
And you also push down that subconscious feeling of whatever, because you're not allowed to show it, you're not allowed to feel it, so you almost train yourself out of it. Is that a
yeah,
way to say
well,
it?
yeah, because
Yeah.
you've taught the brain, or the evidence the brain has got is, see, if you speak up and say you don't like something, you're going to be punished. There's the danger.
Yeah.
So when it processes everything else and shuts it away, it keeps hold of that message that's danger because it wants to keep you safe.
Yeah.
Our body always wants to keep us safe. So it's not that it's not there, it's just that you've learned to suppress it.
Or
Okay?
you've not learnt to cultivate it because no one's shown you how to do that. So, for
Yeah.
example, in a loving, nurturing family where children may be taught about not just stranger danger, but just danger in general, then you're almost, as I said, teaching, cultivating that gut instinct for that individual, for that child, young person. But if they're not being taught that, then it won't develop in the way that we expect it to develop.
Yeah. And how often do we hear people talking about been brought up in a loving relationship? It was really good. However, one parent, and I'm not going to say any particular role because
Yeah.
it's different for everyone, but one parent they could go to and they could speak with, and that parent, even if they'd been in trouble, for instance, that parent would keep calm, would listen, and help them find a solution, maybe. Whereas the other parent may hear and then react, not
Yeah.
necessarily in an aggressive way, but there'll be an emotive reaction, and that can be a trigger in itself. So you can see 2 different ways.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the other thing is, what happens there is, even this loving person who does react, if there's someone that is particularly important to you, so I don't want to give a gender stereotype because I
No, no, no. Yeah.
want to keep this as balanced as possible. But if you're then developing relationships later with different people, one like the one parent who was listening to you, was helping you find a solution, you'll gravitate towards that and understand that relationship. Same as the person who reacts by firing off when they hear what you've got to say. So it's familial.
Mm-hmm.
It's what
Right.
you know, it's familiar. So if this person who's reacting, whether it be emotionally, physically, violently, then why would it come up as a red flag?
Yeah, because it's your normal, inverted commas, isn't it?
Yeah, and that person loves you. You know that because not only do they tell you they love you, society tells you, oh, but it's, you know, you've only got one parent, or it's a sibling, or it's a grandparent. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It becomes familial. So there's no blame here. That's why I'm trying to make it as broad as possible, so that anyone listening can think, oh, yeah, can trace it back.
Yeah.
That's when it becomes familial. And if I give you an example, so now be very careful here. So I remember my first serious long relationship. When I look back now, I can see how abusive it was, but I didn't see it like that.
No, and
The
many
control,
don't.
no, the control I took was love. And when you look back, that reflects my own father.
Yeah.
So that was very familial. That was safe. I didn't see any of the red flags. When you do little quizzes and things like that, or when someone says something, you think, well, no, he loves me.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back now, yeah, some things he did love me, but actually those things were wrong. For me, they did feel wrong sometimes, but then I was told I was being oversensitive. And if I did say something back, there'd be a reaction. And that would be the same as what I grew up with this person. So can you see how it becomes familial?
Yeah.
And you keep, let's be honest, not, you know, relationships you have to work at. So you keep thinking, I need to work at it more.
Yeah. And really, you should only be working at it more if the other person is also working at it equally with you. And if it works, fantastic. And if it doesn't, you might not be right for each other. Let's put that out there.
Yeah. And then sorry, I was just going to say, then the next long-term relationship I had, I'd learned from that, but I did with support. I was having support then. So my fear was I didn't want to go back into a similar. So I was having to learn with support. You know, I did have therapy with support to learn where was the balance.
Yeah.
How can I communicate?
Yeah, and where your boundaries are, what will you tolerate and what will you not tolerate? And you know, and a big thing on my course when I teach it, even though it is not on the curriculum, so to speak, but it always comes up, is okay, well, if I haven't got this gut instinct, how do I develop this gut instinct? And how do I know what is abusive and what isn't, what is dysfunctional, what isn't? Because if all I've known is this, how do I know any different? And sometimes I've had many women say to me, I do have men on my course as well, but this is mainly what I'm thinking about, what the women have told me, is that they actually feel safe in the abusive, their normal relationship, than they would if they left that relationship.
Absolutely.
And even when they're out of the dysfunctional abusive relationship and they're on their own, they don't like being on their own, because I'm not saying all, I'm just saying some have fed this back to me. They don't like being on their own because they feel unsafe. They don't know what the boundaries are. They don't know what the dynamics are, and they don't know what they are allowed and not allowed to do. So they actually feel safer in the relationship that they've just left. And some have said, not all, that's why they've gone back. Some have said, I just want to be in another relationship because that's where I feel safe, no matter what that relationship looks like. So there's almost got to be this work on getting this gut instinct through education, through awareness, and just knowing you as a person before you go into any other kind of relationship, whether it's good or bad.
Absolutely. And the first thing that I say is it's about very politely and with love moving everyone else away. Okay. And just sitting with you. Now that can be scary in itself, because when you're sitting with you, what else are you sitting with? Okay. So it's just sitting with you. but it's learning, and it is a learning. It's learning to have a relationship with yourself. And that's when it comes back to the very basic things of learning to listen to yourself, to nurture yourself. So, you know, we talk about self-care, but it's not, the self-care is about having a relationship with yourself. What do I want? You know, when we spoke about self-care in another session, but how do I feel? What do I want? What's right for me? So going back to that scenario of being in a group and there were 6 other people finding something funny, for instance, there will have been a time where I would have gone along with it because I didn't want to not be part of that group.
Or the odd one out.
Or the odd one out, yeah, because as human beings, having part of a being part of a community is so important. And having someone with us, being in a relationship is important. That's a human instinct. However, what we're looking to be is interdependent, so independent within that group, and build relationships that those 6 people also realize that they're not going to mock me because I don't agree with that, but they accept it. Same as I can accept that I don't like that joke, and that's the same with any relationship. So you and I have very different aspects about us. We have the same passion, but we have different aspects about us. But we talk about those things and we communicate them so that you bring yourself to the table and I bring myself to the table. And if we don't agree with something, it's about being able to communicate it and respect it. But we've only been able to do that because we understand what's right for us. So those women that are in that place are in a place of fear. Let's be honest, change is scary, even exciting change.
Yeah.
You know, how many times do you hear, you know, I'm watching the Paralympics at the moment because I find it fascinating and inspiring. And, you know, I was really looking forward to coming here, but I was scared as well. Now, that's a good experience, but there's always that survival. What if it goes wrong?
Yeah.
What if I don't do well? You know, and that's the same in any relationship. So when we know what we want, and I'm saying that not in a flippant way, saying go away, think about what you want, but it's about giving yourself permission. What do you want? And continually asking yourself, what do you want? So that when you're in a relationship, if you can understand what you want, you can then convey it. So when you're trying to give a scenario that's simple for everyone. If you're in a relationship and you want to buy, I don't know, a blanket for the bed, okay? One person wants red, the other one wants blue. Why do you want blue? I like blue because it makes me feel very calm in the bedroom and I love that colour. The other person is like, I like red because I find that red is something I really like. It makes me feel happy and I want to brighten up the room. Yeah. So then you've got 2 people with 2 very different colours. Yeah. Now they've been able to explain it and understand it, then they can negotiate and find something that works both for them. Do they mix the blue and red and get purple, or do they have a red and blue pattern? Or do they have their own blankets?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I've given that as an analogy, not to confuse people, but to make it really simple to help understand in that way. So, you know, that gut instinct is something we naturally have, but we often suppress it. And that we see so many, there's so much research in this, and it's about the relearning.
And I think a good place is to start with the science behind it, because I think then people will understand that it's there, the vagus nerve connections from the gut to the brain, it's there to help keep us safe. And if you've gone through any kind of abuse, you've literally are, most of us, I haven't heard of one victim or survivor, individual that's been harmed, that hasn't got this hyper arousal, this antennae that like basically goes blub 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 blub, looking for it. I say that though, some people haven't got that.
They just haven't.
They haven't developed it. Yeah,
they have got it, but it's become so suppressed and shut off.
So we've got two ends of the spectrum there, haven't we? We've got people like me that are constantly like this, and we've got the others that have got it suppressed. So it's about trying to come back to balance always, isn't it? So how can you calm down all of this constant hyperarousal, or the suppressed? How can we lift that up to recognize danger for when it is true danger?
And this is part of, and the other thing I want to be really careful here, because for some people this will be scary enough listening to this podcast, because it's like, well, you're asking me to open things up. One of the things I want to say is, we're not asking you to go back to each and every episode of trauma, not asking you to do that, but be aware sometimes. Like, if your stomach feels funny, our gut is a big organ, and 85% of our messages from our gut go to our brain, not the other way around. Yeah. Our brain does tell our gut to do, but it's mostly our gut telling our brain. So, IBS, any digestive problem, if you've got the runs or you can't go, that will tell you that there's stress or trauma in the body, because your body's the digestive system's unable to work properly. So that's giving you messages there already.
Yeah, sorry, I just smiled then, everyone, because Beverley said the runs or can't go, and I'm like, my brain went, the true words for that is constipation or diarrhea.
Well, you can do the science there.
How bizarre is that?
Yeah, but that's
so funny.
But that's good, because we're saying it as it is, and that's what we like doing. So yes, if you get constipation or diarrhea, and anyone listening, I hope that's made you laugh too.
Yeah, hopefully.
But that's good. Tap into it. Be aware of what's happening. That's important. Oh, okay. Is this stress? Is this something that I've been eating or not been eating? Is it that, have I given myself enough fluids?
Yeah.
These are all physical things, but actually they're helping us really be in touch with our body and start reconnecting with it. And
asking the questions, what's going on? Yeah.
And we do it that simply because often out of fear, we then try and get everything in and think, oh yeah, but if I do that, what will it lead to? And we can continue it. It's like, no, bring it back. Just start. And what place to start with our stomach on the toilet? Just start being aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
And
so for me, sorry.
No, I was going to say that's, one key place that we all have to do, that you can start with.
So for me, my gut instinct, it usually shows up with me, I feel like solidness in my back. So my muscles have then obviously contracted. I might feel my hairs on my arms stand up. I might feel like my throat getting tight, or the back of my neck, my shoulders and my back. I sort of go solid. And so that's my body picking up on everything and anything, even before my brain has connected with what's going on.
Absolutely. And for years, I didn't realise. Again, when you said your hairs on your arm, yes, that's one for mine, but I also get another tingly feeling in my arms. It's really weird. Yeah, it's a really weird sensation. And they literally tingle. The lower back, that's another one. But the other one, what I call my teenage self. Have you ever been in a conversation and something's been said that's perfectly normal, but you just feel your heart react?
Heart reacts?
Well, your heart, your chest, it's like, no. It's like a constriction, like, no.
Constriction, yeah.
And when that happens to me, I'm like, whoa, okay,
Yeah.
what is it? What
It's
is it?
almost like doing emergency stop, that sounded like in the car. It's that kind of quick
Yeah.
and like, wow. Yeah.
Whereas that always used to happen, but I dismissed it. Whereas now if that happens, I'm like, oh, okay, let's go
What's
inside.
going on?
Yeah, what is that? And
Yeah.
sometimes it may be something innocent that somebody's talking about something, but I've actually picked up some bias of them,
Yeah.
unconscious bias.
Hmm.
And I've heard that, and that's reflected on, or somebody has said something and I think, oh, you need some education. But then I
Yeah.
take a deep breath and I'm like, right, could you say that again, please? Could you run
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
by me
Run it by
again?
me. Yeah.
Yeah,
And can we just unpick that? Why do you think that? Where's
yeah,
that coming from?
yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than just ignoring it, and then
Yeah.
that's when it keeps happening and you keep ignoring it, that's when it gets bigger. And that's when
Yeah.
we're on hyper alert all the time because
Yeah.
we're waiting for the next thing rather than thinking, okay, where am I today?
So
What is
again,
it?
think those words hyper, where you are really open and tuned in and switched on, and you're a bit like a, as I said, that antennae. And then there's that hypo, where you are just very suppressed to it. And neither's right or wrong. It just is. It's the way that you respond. Um, but it is all about, as we've said in other podcasts, bringing everything back to balance.
Yes. So if anyone's listening or watching us, and what we're saying, because for some people, they may be listening to us and then going, oh, I don't agree. Lovely.
Yeah,
Lovely.
yeah. Let us
Contact
know.
us. Yeah, contact us. Um, Email us, BreakingTheCycleToStepForward@gmail.com. Make a comment. If there's something we've said that, really resonates with you and you're like, oh, wow, yes, yes. Again, let us know, because it's little steps. What we don't want you to do is go away and start questioning everything and get overloaded. We're not saying that, but just be aware of what's happening with your body. What
Yeah.
little messages is it trying to send you? And likewise, how are you nurturing your body?
So there's the little steps, but also just being aware that if you have questioned your relationship, whether it's a present one or a past one, and you want to get into a new relationship and you're really worried and nervous, just write down for yourself, what is it you didn't like in a previous relationship or did like? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? Set your boundaries, and then you've got yourself a little bit of a recipe for success, because you're now going into a new relationship on your merits, so to speak.
And that's a great way, but it's also about communicating what works for you. What's your,
Yes.
as some people say, your love language, which
Yeah.
you do have a language for every type of relationship. So think about what it is. I remember thinking about what I wanted, and I get from my current relationship, I wanted to be a relationship with someone that, for instance, understands the benefits of yoga for me. So they're not necessarily into yoga, but they understand.
Yeah.
And that was a key thing. Likewise, I'm the same with my husband. He goes to certain things. It doesn't involve me, but I understand that's important to him.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
needs that. And then that way we can come together as the best versions of ourselves. Not saying we never
Yeah.
argue, but we we
Yeah.
can understand who we are.
Yeah. And you're meeting your own needs as well as your joint needs, aren't you?
Which
Yeah.
is so important.
It
And
is.
and balance is important, because if you have someone just meeting their own needs and that's not healthy either.
No, no. And again, we keep using this term balance, and some of you might be getting really irritated by it. Sometimes life will go out. So if you think of your life as different areas, just for visualization's sake, so you might have your employment, your job, you might have your children, you might have your partner, hubby, girlfriend, whoever it happens to be, and you've got all of these different sections that interrelate, and you're in the middle of it all, you sort of like, you might at one time be spending more energy and time in one particular area, so like career, for example, and everything else goes by the wayside for a little while, and then you'll bring yourself back into balance, and then it might happen in a different area. So there's nothing wrong with any of that, but it's just overall, if you're not happy, if you're not healthy, if you're not at peace, why? What's going on? And how can you bring that back to balance?
Yeah, absolutely. And I liken it to, do you remember watching the white dinner plates on the sticks?
Yes, yes.
So some of them need twiddling, and some of them,
plates,
yeah, that's it, spinning the plates. And some of them you have to start it with the big, and others you just go like that, and it's like that. And if you start to feel that the plates are all starting to wobble and they all need attention, and one or two come crashing down, that's when I think of myself, when I get that, because I'm very visual, when I get that in my mind, that's overwhelm. And then I think, right, all step back, I'm stepping back. What do I need right now?
Yeah.
But that's not easy to learn.
No, but take some of those plates down and then start spinning one when you're ready.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there we go, Chris. And we've done that on time for a change.
I was going to say that myself, for a change.
So thank you everyone to listening. As we mentioned, if you've got anything that you want to ask us or share with us, the email address is BreakingTheCycleToStepForward@gmail.com, or leave a comment underneath on the video that you're watching on YouTube. Thank you very much.
Bye everyone. Take care.
Bye everyone.